Welcome to the Diversity Pivot Podcast. I'm your host, Julie Kratz, and this season we will be unpacking real trends, hot topics in the workplace around allyship and inclusion. Our goal is that each week you leave with tangible tools, information, practical strategies that you can take back to allies at your organization. Let's dig in to this week's topic. Hey listeners, back for another solo episode to break up some of the great guests we've been bringing you week to week. And just if you ever have a guest that you think would be awesome on the podcast, either the subject matter I haven't been able to cover yet or could use another take or perspective, welcome those suggestions. So let's get to the meat of this week's topic. I wanted to talk about quiet quitting, and not people quiet quitting, but companies quiet quitting on DEI programs. You know, it feels like on a weekly basis, my newsfeed gets an article like, is DEI dying or people quitting DEI? Certainly there's no shortage of headlines and things like the Fearless Fund, which has supported women of color with investments, having a lawsuit and potential pushback. Of course, last summer's Supreme Court decision on affirmative action, which only affected higher ed, but companies can certainly cite that as an excuse or reason to discontinue at the organizational level, which is not affected, to be clear. And then we have state legislation, Utah, Florida, Texas, to name a few, that are really trying to cut DEI programs, specifically at the university level, and in framing what can be taught in the school system. So again, not implications for companies per se. So none of these decisions suggest or clearly, articulately say you have to cut your DEI program, but we have seen an exodus in a lot of companies. What's interesting, though, is I feel like there's a lot of talk into the negative when there's actually quite a bit of positive associated with this. So one, the companies that were not in to begin with are clearly out, which in my opinion is a good thing. Pretending to support something is unhelpful, and sincere DEI efforts can cause more harm than good. So if you were already not really in, you're definitely out, which makes it more clear who's in and who's out. And there's a lot of companies that were saying, we're just starting to see the results of this work. If we got serious about it in 2020, this is a long game. We're just starting to see the benefits of inclusion. We're just starting to see our talent pipelines increase at a time when there are labor shortages. And we're just starting to see our leaders really get engaged and leading inclusively. And we're seeing the results of that. So companies that have seen the benefits, which is a lot of companies, if they were sincere in their efforts, are kind of quietly keeping DEI efforts alive. And I actually think that's another good thing, that if you are doing it to get press time, if you're doing it to make a bold statement, donation, look like one of the good guys, your intentions probably weren't sincere to begin with. So if you're quietly doing DEI, which the data suggests companies are more resourcing it internally versus before, hiring consultants, trainers, etc., like me, but they're resourcing it internally. And so what we're seeing from our vantage point, working with some global leaders in this space, is that they want to run allyship programs. I think allyship programs are fantastic. Again, if you have a serious why for the work and you can engage, people that want to get it that don't get it yet, that, our middle managers are influential people in the organization. Wow, what power in getting people to embrace helping others that are different from themselves. Mentorship, sponsorship. There's so many activities that those folks can do that they probably don't even realize and just need permission. and tools and information and encouragement. So I see allyship programs as something that can quietly be embedded in existing leadership development efforts. We've seen some tremendous results from some global leading companies that we're working with. The other piece to embedding DEI into your culture is really just setting the expectation. This is important to us, that inclusion is a value or it's connected to our existing values. And we're doing this because we want to stay relevant. We want to mirror the communities we hope to serve. We realize that, the demographics are certainly shifting, not just in the United States, but worldwide. There's just less talent that's going to look like past talent. And so we have to adjust our systems if we want to be ready for what that looks like, and our consumer base, what that looks like. So with changing expectations, we need to change our culture so that we're mirroring, that we're ready for those changes that are certainly coming. And then the last piece that I would recommend, so allyship programs, getting really clear on your why and embedding DEI into your existing culture. I would say one more is there's this loud minority of folks. And while they are a minority, most of our data points to maybe 10 to 15% of the population or the workforce is, vehemently against DEI efforts. What I usually find, because I spend time in rooms with these people, is that there's not an understanding of what it is. So we really have to be clear on what it is to get them engaged or quieted. Because those loud voices, even if it is just a few, it can be very disruptive to the rest of the organization if this person's allowed to say negative things and say, I'm not doing DEI. That one person makes it okay for other people to mirror that behavior. And so it can be contagious. So getting really clear on what it is, why it matters, and helping the person see themselves as a part of this. I often find when I spend time with people that don't understand DEI or feel like it's a negative thing, when we spend time going through what it is and how it connects to them and their values, there can be an eye-opening moment. And certainly not everybody's minds can be changed, but if we just ask, you don't have to change your beliefs. You don't have to change your values. This is about respecting differences of others, and I need you to be able to appreciate differences and respect them while keeping your own values, beliefs, right? And so if you feel strongly about a political issue or something that matters to you, that's fine. That's your stance. But other people might have different perspectives, and we need to respect those just like you want yours to be respected. And sometimes just that conversation can be really powerful, and DEI is no longer a weapon. It's no longer something to be debated. It's something we can all kind of get behind, and it's going to make us all better. So those are some of my ideas about quiet quitting and DEI. And I think what's really interesting, if I had to look into the future ball, is the companies that are doubling down now, they're really, really going to start to see those results. Just like companies that doubled down and were intentional and consistent since 2020 and way before that, for that matter, are seeing the results of the long game. They'll see the results, and the results will speak for themselves. So stay with it. Embedding DEI in a culture, I think, was always the right thing to do. And so let's stop saying DEI is dying. It's just quietly persevering instead. Thanks, allies. Hope to have you back.
Thank you for listening to the Diversity Pivot podcast. My hope is that you walked away with a tangible tool, insight, or information that you can share with other allies on the journey. If you liked this week's episode, please leave us a review. Your feedback means a tremendous amount to us. We'll be back next week with another hot topic.
Next week.